Hey everyone, welcome to Moreality, your channel for React Native content. Today we're going to be talking about the useCallback hook. So today's hook is a built-in React hook that accepts two arguments, an inline callback and an array of dependencies. And it returns a memoized callback. So this was similar to yesterday's hook, useMemo, which it also took two arguments, inline function and an array of dependencies, and returned a memoized value. So the difference here between useCallback and useMemo is that useMemo returns a memoized value, similar to a cached value, and then a useCallback returns a memoized callback function. So continuing on, useCallback will return a memoized version of the callback that only changes if one of the dependencies in the dependencies array has changed. This is useful when passing callbacks to optimize child components that rely on reference equality to prevent unnecessary renders. So we can do passing the function to another component that is also memoized. Your function has an internal state it needs to remember, or if your function is a dependency of another hook, like useEffect, for example. So these are instances where we'd want to use the useCallback hook. We'll jump into later talking about how useCallback without the inline function is basically the equivalent of useMemo with the inline function as the first argument. So in today's example, I'll go ahead and show you how to have two counters, one that is going to increment a value called count and another that's going to increment and decrement a value called number. And what we're going to do is when we increment or decrement count or increment or decrement number, those increment and decrement functions are going to be added to a set. So we're going to see that without useCallback, we're going to have 4 functions added to the set every single time. And if we use callback, we're only going to have 2 functions added to the set. So we'll go ahead and dive into that example right now. First, what we're going to do is going to go to our source folder. We're going to add a new file. We'll call it useCallbackHook.js. We're going to type RFNE for React Native Functional Export Component. Hit enter. Okay. So first we're going to let's get our UI set up first. So we're going to throw in text component. We're going to have 2 buttons, one to increment, one to decrement. Let's go ahead and import the button component from React Native. Let me go to app.js real quick. We're going to say use callback hook, self-closing component. Here we have the import statement. Let me comment this out for 1 second. Okay, so now we're rendering the useCallback hook component in the app.js screen. So now we're going to we can uncomment this out. We'll go ahead and put a title for it. It's going to say increments. Call it increase count. Okay. And we're going to have another one. It's going to be called decrease count. And this is going to say count. Then we can get the value of count right here. So since we don't have that yet, let me leave that out for a second. we're going to copy and paste these 3 lines, put a space in between so we can see our code a little better. I'll call this one number, and we're going to say increase. So if you're not sure how I did that right there, let me do it again so you can see. If I select this, then I'm on Mac, so if I press Command and D, you could see there's 2 cursors now. And now if I backspace for both, you could see it deletes, and I could type on both lines. Okay, so now let's go ahead, bring in our state. We're going to call it const count and set count. And then that's going to be equal to useState. And we'll set the default value of 0. We got to import useState. Got a new keyboard today, so I'm moving a little bit slower. Alright, so I have, we'll just do it like this, number. So I was going to try to do the trick. Let me go back and show you. So if we select count like we did before and then press Command D. Okay, yeah, we could do it. Sometimes before it used to not let me do that since this is a lowercase c and this is a capital C. But now we can do that, so I could backspace on both, put number, but then again that does mess us up right here because it needs to be a camel case. According to the standard, it'll still work either way. Okay, now we could go ahead and throw count in here. Here we'll go ahead and put number inside here. Okay, so we can see count pop up, number pop up. So now we're going to have functions to increment and decrement count and number. So we say const increment count is going to be equal to arrow function just say set count to count plus 1. Okay, and then we're going to do that 3 more times. So this is going to be decrement count, and it'll be count minus 1. And this will be increment. So in this case we could do it because the camel case is fine here too, so I'll press Command D so we can modify both those at the same time. That's going to say number, and now here we need to do decrement, and this is going to be, I'm going to do this like I just did with above, Command D, number. This is going to be minus. So now we have increment count, which we set the count to count plus 1. Decrement count, we set count to count minus 1. And then the same increment, decrement for number. Okay. Now what we want to do is right up here, we're going to say const funcCount, function count. This is going to be a new set. So what's going to happen here is we're going to create a set, and that set is going to have the number of functions that are called each time that we press one of these buttons: increase count, decrease count, increase number, or decrease number. So what you're going to see is that even if we press increase count, the number of functions in this set is going to be 4. And then the next time it'll be 8, and then 12, and 16, and so on. And I'm going to show you how to optimize that using useCallback hook. So now what we want to do is now we want to say funcCount.add increment count. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna copy and paste that 4 times. So this is gonna be decrement count. This is going to be increment number. I'm gonna do the Command D trick again. No, I can't because there's a count right here, so it'll get that. It's okay. Number. Okay, and then this is going to be decrement. So we have increment count, increment number, decrement number. So then I'm going to add a console.log message. So what we could do is we could type CLG. So type CLG, and you can see this first one here displays a message in the console. Click that. We don't have a variable called first. We're gonna say funcCount, and then we're going to actually put the value of funcCount there. And we want funcCount dot, here you can see size, so this is going to be the size of the set that we have. So here you can see right off the bat we have 4. So let's finish up. Let me just style this real quick. So we're going to give it a margin top. We're going to say 30. I'm going to say align items to center. And we're going to say justify content to center. And if you're wondering how I'm pressing tab and the code's just typing in, you can use tab 9 for that. It's an extension that you can install. And what'll happen is over time, as you keep coding while using that extension, it'll start to use AI to figure out what are you most likely to type there. And overall, most cases, it's pretty accurate. Okay, so we can see we lined everything up. Now let's go ahead, do a little styling to our text. I'm going to say font size, and we'll give it a font size of 30. And I just want to put a margin bottom of 20. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing for the text below. And see how there's not much space in between these, so I'm just going to put a little bit of margin top. I'll give it, say, 30. Okay. That looks pretty good. Okay, so last thing we need to do is in the buttons, we need to add the functionality for the onPress prop. So we'll say is increment count, and then we're going to say onPress, say decrement count, down here onPress, increment number, and then last one onPress, decrement number. Okay, here we go. So we're all set up now. We have our funcCount, which is a set of values, and then we have our state variables, count and number. We have our functions that's going to increase and decrease count and number. We're adding those values to our funcCount set. We're displaying funcCount size in the console.log, in the console down here using console.log. And then we have it displayed on our iPhone 14 Pro Max. So let's go ahead, we'll reload so we could fresh values. Okay, so right off the bat we have 4. If we press any of these buttons to increase count, decrease, increase number, or decrease, this will go up to 8 right here, because all 4 values are going to be added to that set. Now we have 8, now we have 12, now we have 16. Oh, got a little bug here. Let me fix that. It should say number. Let's reload. Okay, so 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So every time we're pressing one of these buttons, we're getting 4 values added to the function count. So we could fix that with using the useCallback hook. So let's go ahead and do that. Right here, we're going to say useCallback, wrap it just like that. Then we need to import that hook from React. Now we have that. So now we just need to do the same thing with these other 3 functions. So go here, wrap that. Okay, last one. Here we go. Okay, so let's reload it. Okay, so as you can see, again we start with 4. And now let's press increase count and let's see what happens. Okay, for some reason we're getting the same thing. Let's double check our code. Increment count, decrement, increment number, decrement number. Oh, okay, that's right. So what we have to do for this, there's a second argument that needs to be passed, and it tells us when do we want to update the value for the callback function. In this case, we only want to update it when the value of count is changed. So this is our dependencies array. In this case, it's only a single dependency. So for these bottom 2, we only want the useCallback function. We only want the increment number and decrement number function to be updated when the value of number changes. So let's go ahead and reload again. Okay, so now let's try this again. We're starting at 4, press increase count. There we go. Now we could see that there's 6 functions in there. So now it added 2 values instead of 4. We could do decrement. Now we have 8. Now we have 10. Now we have 12. So as you can see, instead of it going up 4 each time, now it's only going up 2 each time, because we have 2 functions that are dependent upon the value of count. So when count changes, we get 2 more values added to that set. And same thing with number. When number changes, we have 2 more values added to the set, instead of all of them being called again and added to that set. So that's going to be it for the useCallback hook. If you have any questions, comments, please leave it down below. If you like this content, please hit like and subscribe so we can continue making more content for you. If you don't like how the screen goes red as I update different things, like for example here, if I'm typing text right there, because I'm going to make a text component but I'm not finished, and that goes red for a second and then comes back on. If you guys don't like that, I could turn autosave off. let me know what works best for you guys, and I'll cater to that. Tomorrow we'll be working on another hook, so please tune in for that. If there's anything else you'd like to see, please leave it down below in the comments. Thank you, and have a good day.